Cursed Prince, and I am here to deliver the update version 1.4 for the One operating system. If you believe you're the One operating system, this update is for you. So today we're going to be speaking on the hierarchy of subsystems, specifically biological subsystems. So when it comes to biological subsystems, regardless of the kingdom, animals, plants, fungi, protists, and Monera, only a few elements, around 25 out of the 92 total in the periodic table, are essential for all biological systems. So the importance of these elements becomes obvious when the reduction of their nutritional availability produces dysfunction, disease, or even the death of the biological system. Thus, life can be defined by a specific chemical composition in terms of the chemical elements essential to the structure and function of the cells. Alternatively, life can be described by a number of characteristic molecules and by the mechanisms of which the functions performed by these molecules. So each different organization has a hierarchy. For instance, every body part has a set of functions, a set of primary functions. And the primary functions of this body part is its main purpose. However, there's a secondary communication aspect to these organizations. And these organizations have to speak to each other in order to receive the elements necessary in order to complete their task, their mission. And this comes down to a basis of, are you giving your body what it needs in order for it to organize itself properly? This could be looked at your spiritual diet, what you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. And when you break it down on a biological system hierarchy level, right? Everything has a hierarchy, as in from the top down, you have the brain, and the brain is the central processing unit. This is where all the processing occurs. And then throughout the body, you have different systems. You have the digestive, you have the excretory, you have all these different subsystems that play with each other, but ultimately are in charge of their organization. And the amount of organization within that subsection will tell you ultimately how efficiently the overall biological system is running. Because if there's a breakdown in the organization, then there's going to be a certain level of disease, dysfunction, disharmony, because there's not the level of alignment required in order to synthesize and produce all the chemicals necessary to complete the mission by these organizations. So when these organizations, when these body parts cannot produce these chemicals, or rather fulfill their mission, what happens? Well, a few different things can potentially happen. These organizations have to communicate that there is a lack, that there is a aspect that is not being fulfilled. If they communicate this to the brain, and the brain says, okay, for instance, the stomach organization is speaking to the brain. The stomach is saying, I require sustenance, some form of energy, in order to convert that into more usable energy. And the brain is going to look at the current energy levels and say, yep, okay, current energy levels are dropping because there hasn't been any sustenance, any energy intake. So let's actually eat something, let's intake something, and let's start that conversion process so that the organization of the stomach can have everything it needs in order to do its job accurately. However, if there is a certain disease, if there is a certain level of ignorance when it comes to a body part, and that body part has already essentially gone on strike, the workers have gone on strike, and there's a breakdown in that organization, until that organization is rebuilt, there will continue to be a breakdown, and there will continue to be a point of failure at that exact energy center, because there has to be a complete alignment and there has to be a complete sense of harmony within oneself. If there isn't a sense of harmony within oneself, then you are lending to very dangerous environments. You're lending yourself to situations that can cause more disease, more is going to manifest. And if there are no accidents within this universe, then one would understand it's about balancing out the two polarities of give and take, push and pull. So if you are in a constant push, then you're not receiving anything, because the pull is the negative aspect. That's the sucking in, that's the breathing in the air. While the push, that's the exhale. The exhale is the afterthought, the after factor, the aftermath of the inhale, the negative. So when you come into this world, the first thing you do as a child is you take that breath of air in. So you, and then convert that into carbon dioxide. You convert that oxygen into carbon dioxide. Your lungs, if they're working properly, this is the alchemical process that'll take place. The air goes from oxygen into carbon dioxide. So this conversion process as a child, as an infant, when you're born, happens nearly instantaneous. And once you take in, once you receive the element from the universe and you exchange carbon dioxide, you have created this synergy between yourself and the universe. There's this symbiotic relationship between nature and humans. And when you are in accordance and when you are in alignment, everything within nature will follow suit, because you are the energetic beacon that is sending out waves into the universe. Animals, all types of biological subsystems can pick up on this, especially parasites. Parasites would be considered part of the entire hierarchy of the biological system because it is a part of it. And if anything is a part of a biological subsystem, it falls into a place, into a rank, into a structure within a hierarchy. Now, understanding this hierarchy is crucial to your soul's development, your soul's growth, because if you don't understand the hierarchy, then you won't understand how the subsystems all communicate. And the subsystems all understand what you are lacking and what you are failing to give yourself. If you are constantly putting yourself into situations of stress, fear, negative emotions, all the subsystems, all the biological subsystems are going to be accustomed to that language. They're going to be accustomed to that energetic vibration. So they're going to operate at a less efficient level. Let's just say when you are unaware, you're operating at 50% capacity. You're operating at just 50%, and that's just based off the program survival aspects that are hardwired into your character, your avatar. So let's say when you become conscious, when you become aware, let's say it jumps up 20%, right? And so let's say now that you're at 70%. And so now you're at 70% awareness and you're conscious of the things you're doing, you're setting intentions, and you're moving intentionally. Well, how do you get that final 30%? This is where the extreme level of optimization and alignment comes into play. Because while it's easy to get from that 50 to 70 mark, that 70 to 100 mark is a lot harder to get to, because the stakes are already so high. You already are elevating to levels where it becomes like falling off of a 50-foot building versus falling off of the monkey bars. When you climb higher through consciousness, when you continue to ascend, you will find different aspects of yourself that are stuck in time. And it is your responsibility to free these stuck parts of yourself and allow the ascension process to continue, the transformation process to continue. However, you are on hold. You are on hold because you forgot the usage and the overall functioning of your subsystems, of your internal hierarchy. And because you forgot this internal hierarchy structure, you essentially got put into a place of complacency, a place of contentness. And this contentness led you to continue what you were doing without deviating. And by continuing the behaviors and the patterns that you exhibited unconsciously, you were working towards expanding your soul, but on a right moment, right time basis. And when it's the right moment, when it's the right time, the expansion will occur. But there has to be a level of experience, or experiences rather, to tie into the reality to make sense of what is occurring. So if you have no fundamental background when it comes to understanding the environment, understanding the functions and the hierarchy of subsystems, biological subsystems, you are just pushing buttons and basically rolling with the flow. And this is where the problem comes in, because while we have learned to survive, we have not been trained nor programmed to live consciously. In fact, it is quite the opposite, because most people are not even aware of their current location in space and time. And if you recognize that as a creator, time is utilized to assess where you are at any given point in relation to where you want to be, then you can understand time on a universal level is strictly about markers, is strictly about comparison. It's about data, because with data, with information, with light, one can assess and recalculate in order to get to where one truly wants to be, where one's heart's desire, where one's soul urges to be. When you take a step back and you look at Gaia, right? Terra, Earth, this realm, whatever you want to call it. When you look at this realm and you look at this being that we are living within, there is a hierarchy of biological subsystems. And if you recognize these within yourself, the micro universe, you can recognize them within the macro universe, Gaia. And when you understand the macro-micro relationship, you can understand and dissect the movements necessary to align and how Gaia aligns her biological subsystems via elements. And you can look at this you can look at them as 5 fundamental elements, right? Water, fire, spirit, air. Theory trip. Water, fire, spirit, air, and ether, if you want to consider the ether. So these 5 elements is what Gaia uses to maintain, adapt, upgrade, de-evolve, deform. Every aspect of her biological subsystems is tailored and controlled by the elements. And the elements can be either destructive or they can be beneficial. So for instance, fire. Fire can destroy, but fire can also clear lands to make new. And so same thing with water. Water can nourish the lands, but it can also, too much water can flood the lands. So everything is about that aspect of balance. And if you look at the evaporation cycle, all the different systems that are put in place that Gaia uses to regulate herself, that the earth uses to regulate itself. And if you look at these systems and how they play out, you can then apply them to your life. You can apply fire to destroy the things that need to be destroyed to clear and make way for the new. You can apply the water to nourish and replenish the lands. You can apply the air to continue to bring in that fresh innovation, that new wind, that new sense of direction. And then the earth, the practicalness, the practicality, the physicalness of it, the density of it. And when you combine all these elements along with the spirit or the ether, you have all realms in sync, all biological subsystems in sync. And when all these biological subsystems are in sync, one can go through the ascension process. As you see, the earth is going through an ascension process. Time is speeding up. Everything is speeding up because Gaia is beginning to organize and essentially create space for the new by getting rid of the old. This is the transition. This is the point where we will begin to see monumental shifts in consciousness due to the alignment of the being that we are on. Never throughout history, more so than now, has it been as accessible to tap into the 5D consciousness and to integrate all these parts of self. However, if people are still being distracted by the illusion of this reality, then there will never be a level of optimization. There will never be any type of aligning or recognizing hierarchy and subsystems because there's that lack of knowledge of self. And so the more you know self, the more you know the universe. This is the relationship between human and universe, or rather whatever, creator and universe, right? Universe responds to creator simply by vibration. Doesn't care who, what. Universe is indifferent. It responds to vibration. You get your energy this high, you can ride the ride. It's as simple as that. However, if you're manifesting unconsciously, if you're moving through life unconsciously, if you're giving your power away so easily to others and not retaining any aspect for yourself, this is what's occurring to your subsystems. The power is being given away. The power is being drained, depleted by parasites. These parasites can be seen as negative thought forms, negative entities, negative thoughts, anything that has to do with a negative aspect, a removing aspect, right? And so these parasites are removing vital nutrients from these centers and utilizing it for their survival. However, you as the overall biological system have control of all aspects regarding yourself, your internal universe. However, if you don't own these aspects, if you do not claim these aspects, other entities will claim these for you. Other entities will claim your abilities, your powers, your understanding, your lack of understanding, your emotions, your lack of emotions, and they will utilize you in the way that they see fit, in the way that suits their will versus yours. And when we talk about real power is willpower, you have to be so confident in your abilities as a creator that nothing, especially doubt, because doubt is the most common negative thought form that manifests in so many different ways. People not taking opportunities, people not taking that chance, people not shooting that shot simply because of doubt. And if you think about what doubt truly is, doubt is nothing more than a negative parasite. It feeds on the positive image of yourself, the divine image of yourself, and it corrupts you into thinking that you are less than, that you are this unworthy being that is a victim in a sense. But it's a simple understanding that if you are a victim, the other side of that, the dualistic side of that, would be a survivor. So if you understand that you're in a victim polarity, then by simply switching the polarities, you switch to the survivor polarity. And this higher perspective yields a different level of control. It yields a different level of comparison, because you can compare the way you felt at that lower level, at that parasitic level, at that negative thought form level, and then you can compare how you feel once that was released, once that was removed, and you were only feeding yourself and not allowing others to feed off your energy and to deplete you of your vital resources. When you can effectively manage all the resources given to you by the universe, that is all the tools and chemicals that are specifically tailored to you as an individual, you will realize that there is nothing you cannot create. And if there is nothing you cannot create, it becomes a matter of choice. What would you choose to create had you been given the opportunity? And you have been given the opportunity because you're here. And so if you are here, you have a divine purpose. You have a divine role, a divine function. Now, you may want that role to be more glamorous. However, this is simply based off ego. Each actor has a equally important role. However, ego allows us to place importance, rank, and add all these other extraneous details that don't really help us, but rather slow us down because it's more information to process. Instead of understanding and being fluid, we try to tidy everything up and put it in this nice, neat little box and fit everything into its corner and stack the blocks and everything. But by doing that, by applying that level of judgment, you're not allowing yourself to remain open-minded, to remain open to having your mind being changed, because you are essentially creating the expectation before having the experience. And if you're creating the expectation before having the experience simply based off old programming, because you haven't updated the programming and understood that you're worthy of any experience, that you can create any experience, that you can have any experience, you will have to truly step back and just ask yourself, where am I going? Where am I currently? Because I have found that that is a question that will always stop you dead in your tracks and make you consider what it is that you are truly spending your time on. Because it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, in the hustle and bustle. However, if there's no goal, if there's no direction, then you're just lost in space. You're just moving from side to side, front to back, left to right, but there's no direction because there's no end goal. And if there's no end goal, then you're just drifting through space. And as you drift through space, again, whoever is seeing that you're just drifting and they're not drifting, they're going to utilize you because you're not aware of where you are. And if you're not aware, you can be taken advantage of. And once you get taken advantage of, you over time will realize this is not in my best interest. And the way you will see this is because you will become gradually more and more frustrated as your will is not fulfilled. And as your will is not fulfilled, you will feel that you are not being heard, that you are not being felt. And you will want to make your presence known, i.e., you will manifest some situation that will insist your presence be known. However, it may not be in the best conditions. You may be manifesting a situation where you're known for being an asshole. But this is, again, due to the awareness. If that is part of your character's traits, to be jaded, to have that jaded aspect, then understand that and understand where it falls into your hierarchy of subsystems. But don't allow a behavior, a pattern of actions to define your character and to allow judgment to be cast onto your character. Because at any given point, you can change the animation of that character. You can change the behavior and the pattern of actions for that character. But there has to be a conscious effort. There has to be a conscious intention set to change the patterns and behavior of that character. If there is no conscious effort put forth, again, you're drifting. You're simply procrastinating on doing the main storyline. It's like the faster you finish the main storyline, the faster you can go on and do side quests. But you can't finish the main storyline until you know what character you're playing as. What archetype are you playing as? Because if you don't even know the archetype, how can you expect to undergo the hero's journey and know how to play your role? You're going to be a step behind every step of the way because you're not looking at what's best for me. You're looking at what feels good. And what feels good in the moment may not always be what's best for you. What's better, playing that video game or building a 10-figure business? Obviously, the 10-figure business. However, what would feel better in the moment? That instant gratification, that instant distraction. That's what feels better in the moment. However, you know mentally, shit, if I just put the grind in and get this business going, I can play games whenever I want. I won't have to worry about those other aspects. However, the commitment is much more of a long-term commitment versus the commitment of playing the game. That's a short-term commitment and it gets me instant gratification. That sounds like a win until you understand that you're fundamentally cheating yourself because you're allowing yourself to take the easy way to get distracted from completing the main storyline. And the main storyline is understanding and revealing who you are as a character. And of course, characters evolve, characters morph, and characters change over time. But the core of the character remains fundamentally the same. And when you figure out your core fundamental programming, everything else can be erased because everything else was simply a byproduct of conditioning or programming from other people. So once you find the core essence of self, you can then tap into the unlimited, the infinite knowledge that is associated with self, the God mindset, the God frequency. And as you tap into this inner knowing, this inner gnosis, everything becomes a process of remembering versus discovering. Because this is all information that already lies innate within you. And it is dormant waiting upon your arrival. You have to arrive to that locked room within your mind and unlock that door and face what's behind that door. Because once you unlock all the doors within yourself, all the doors within the universe begin to unlock. Why? Because you are not reflecting the energy of a locked door. You are reflecting the energy of an open door, an open portal. And so since you are an open portal, the universe can send souls so that they may pass through you as that portal. And if you think about every individual as a different portal to a different aspect of life, but recognize that each portal, each individual is also you. So some aspect of you. So if an aspect of you is taking you through a place or experience that you have never went through before, this is something you manifested internally, longing for that soul's expansion and growth. And because vibrationally you were a match for what you were looking for, was also looking for you. And so since it was also looking for you as you were looking for it, there was this harmonious meeting of the minds. And this meeting lended to a coalition based on truth, love, and dedication to oneself. And when you dedicate yourself to understanding the intricacies of your character, the strengths and weaknesses, you will not be able to be beaten in any game, because you will understand how your character fundamentally operates in any dimension, any universe, any reality. Again, it goes back to the core programming. When you know the core programming, everything else becomes extra fluff. It's not necessary. It's purely aesthetic. When you get it functioning, first you have to get it functional. Then you make it sexy. If you look at Amazon didn't start off with the clean, polished website, 2-day shipping, all. They made it functional first. Once they had a functional product, they were able to make it sexy. And this is the process for any business, any entity. First, it needs to function. Once it can function, then we make it sexy. Then we add the aesthetics. Then we add all the extra little polish, right? But at the end of the day, you have to make it functional first. If it doesn't function, what's the point? You would be buying rims, putting a system, all this stuff in a car that don't even run. For what? So you can sit in your parking lot and look nice? Or would you rather have a vehicle that's ready to hit the road, go cross country, go on any type of adventure and handle it like a champ? Because you made sure that it worked before it looked pretty. If you focus on function first, making yourself work for yourself, making your body work for you. If you focus on these aspects first, the rest will fall into place. Because as a byproduct of taking care of yourself, you're going to do things that are going to put you in a better position emotionally, financially, spiritually, on all planes and levels of existence. But it comes from the awareness and the attention first. If you don't have the intention to change, if you don't have the desire for more, then you'll continue to be utilized as a battery pack for somebody else's dream, for somebody else's will. And as you're just continuously getting depleted, if you don't have a good system of recharging, you're going to get to a point to where you're going to drop below that threshold. And once you drop below that threshold, there is no coming back. You're simply in a state of depression. because you're now holding down your true desires and not expressing them while simultaneously existing in this simulation as if you want to be existing in the space that you're in. And you don't, because there isn't happiness, there's disharmony. So if you fundamentally understand that you're not happy on some aspect, it doesn't matter how small, how significant, if you are unhappy in any aspect, it's because there isn't an acceptance of reality. And the reality is that none of us came here to be perfect. None of us came here to master any ability, because mastery is a matter of perception. If you look at anybody who has mastered a craft per se, they ultimately reached a level of expertise that most others have not yet obtained. However, there is still a fundamental basis of understanding that without self, there can't be a universe. And without the universe, there can't be a self. So if the relationship between the two is dependent upon the awareness of each other's interests, needs, and desires, when you know what this earth wants and you know what you want, and you can align the two interests, and you can compromise, and you can understand that you as a character have a specific role to play, but that does not mean that that is your only defining role. And your choice and ability as a creator is to define the roles given to you, is to choose the roles given to you. However, if you're not choosing these roles for yourself, and if you're allowing others to choose these for you, then you're at a position of not being in your full authority, not being in your full power. And if you're not at full power, you're not functional. Point blank, period. You're not functional. You have one engine down and you're limping back to the airport, but you are not in any shape or form to be transmitting and to be exploring the sea of commerce, because it is a spiritual war going on. And if you get into uncharted territories, you may not know or have the weapon systems, radar, whatever the system is, you may not have the indications and warnings that some major event is about to happen, about to pop off. You may miss the signs that you're headed into dangerous or treacherous areas, and you may put yourself into a compromising position simply by not being aware of where you are within space and time. So if you understand where you are relative to space and time and your storyline as a character arc, then you're going to be confused. Is this the hero battle? Is this the first battle? Is this where the hero loses and gets demotivated? What aspect of the storyline are you on? Once you recognize this, you can see how the story is going to play out. The typical hero's journey always ends the same. It's just the environment and the actors change. But the fundamental storyline of the hero's journey remains the same. And that's why it's one of the most common, overdone types of films to this day, is because it's the most recognizable on a subconscious level. We understand that we are each on a hero's journey, and each of us are afflicted with some different form of kryptonite, some different form of debilitating substance that keeps us from our true inner strength. And if we can identify this substance, whatever is causing us to remain in that weakened state, and then either remove ourselves or remove it from our environment, we can then become Superman. We can then tap into our supernatural abilities and be able to manifest and to create the realities that we truly want to be part of, versus just being an actor, an extra in a movie that you don't want to be a part of. It's about choice. Freedom is choice. However, freedom costs. You have to pay for freedom. And the way you pay for freedom is with your consciousness. You pay for it by being aware of what you are sacrificing in order to obtain that freedom. Because freedom requires sacrifice. There has to be a fundamental exchange of energy in order for you to obtain the things that you desire. In order to obtain the elements necessary for the things that you desire to manifest within this physical realm, there has to be a balance. There has to be a level of moderation. Because if the body doesn't have what it needs, if the user does not know what they are truly asking for, and they receive exactly what it is they ask for, when you realize everything that exists within your reality is because you, on some form, asked for it, you take a different level of accountability and you take a different level of responsibility, because you understand that if you're not consciously willing these things into existence, your environment and the people around you are subconsciously reflecting these things into your environment, into your existence. And so this reflection from others, other souls, other aspects of yourself, is how you can take feedback and use it to mold and adapt your character and to embody all the traits that you ultimately would like to see. You can create the super version of yourself. And by doing so, you can tap into all the super abilities that you have given yourself. But it goes back into, again, core programming. Core programming. What is your core programming? What did you come here to do? What is your purpose? When you understand these two fundamental questions, you can then step back, zoom out, get some perspective, and look at how you are doing in relation to where you should be, where you could project yourself to be if you maintained a positive mindset, if you maintained a disciplined attitude, if you maintained all these elements that contribute to your success. Where would you be? And you can project yourself. You can understand, okay, if I continue this is where it's going to take me. It's not hard to do the math, but it requires a level of processing and a level of perspective that most cannot take, because they can't see outside of themselves. And if they can't see outside of themselves, if they can't see their environment and the people around them and what that is ultimately reflecting, then they cannot step into their true power. Because until you remove self and understand that you are not this character, you are animating this character, but you are not this character. Until you understand that, and until you get the information, the light codes necessary to build that player stat card, to build that NBA 2K stat card, and understand your shooting percentages, your field goal percentages, to understand all these stats of yourself, is to know thyself. If you don't know what you're good at, if you don't know what you're bad at, if you don't know what your trauma is, if you don't know all these aspects about self, you already are behind the curve, because there are several individuals who do have this information and are utilizing this information to create the world that they want to see. And you may be an extra, a battery pack for that. Rather than powering up your own reality, you're powering somebody else's reality. And that is a sad, sad existence, to not have any aspect of legacy besides the fact that you were utilized in order to build somebody else's legacy. And we all have some form of a master, whether you want to look at it spiritually, physically, there's some form of a boss. There's some form of control. Even as an entrepreneur, there's still a level of hierarchy, of biological subsystems, of rankings that allow you to see where it is that you objectively stand within that reality. So if you are unhappy with the character, you have to fundamentally ask yourself, do I know everything about this character that there is to know? If you know all that character's combos, if you know all that character's moves, there should be no reason why you're not kicking ass with that character, because you have everything within you already to be great. It's simply a matter of activating and optimizing these subsystems so that they work for you and that they do what it is that you wish to do willingly, because there's that alignment. There's that mutual understanding of this is what we are working towards as a goal, as a biological system. And whatever subsystems, whatever organizations are not falling under that hierarchy will be dealt with, because they can be identified and addressed. But if you're not even looking at these subsystems and how efficient they are operating, then you're leaving a lot of efficiency on the table. And again, when we talk about making that jump from 70 to 100, that 30%, that's a hard 30% to earn, because you're talking about levels of consciousness that most people have to spend thousands of lifetimes accumulating light codes and understanding experiences to finally get to a point of awakening to where one can understand its purpose and its position and its process, and simply act as an observer rather than reacting, and make sure that there is no cycle of reincarnation, that there is no coming back to this simulation to learn, because the lesson has been learned. I know who I am. I know what I am capable of. And because of that, I will not come back to this realm, point blank, period, because I am aware of who I am. If you cannot say that same sentence with confidence and believe it wholeheartedly, then you are not ready. And there's some aspect of self that still has to be put into alignment, brought online. And once you bring those parts of self online, everything else will fall into place. It's all about you, though. You got to know what you want, what you can do, and what you can't do. Once you know that, you run lap around the jokers who don't, because they're operating off of low vibrational chaotic energy. And when you got your shit tight, lined up, disciplined, you just blow past that. You blow past all that low vibrational shit, because it don't even clock on your radar. You aren't even at that energetic level to even recognize that chaotic energy, because you've moved past that. But you got to actively choose to move past it. Until you choose to move past it, that's where you're going to be at. If you haven't even understood that you are in hell, that you are currently suffering in hell, in prison, how can you make the shift and create heaven in within your mind, within your temple, if you don't even know where you are? You have to understand where you are in space in relation to where you want to be. Once you know that, you lit. So this has been the Algorhythm 1.4. I'm Curse Prince. To the next one. Peace.